The Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Planted with Sara Pyan podcast. I'm Sara Pyan, your host, and today I'm welcoming back, with my gravelly voice, Dale Sky Jones, Chancellor of Oaksterdam. Welcome, Dale. It's so good to see you again.
You as well, Sara, and that's a sexy voice, so we're good with it.
Yeah, I'm pulling out my Kim Carnes. Did I just age myself by saying that? I think maybe some people.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you've been on the show before. We had some great conversations, and I'm really looking forward to digging into more with you today. Starting out, because I've already asked you the question I ask all my guests, so we're not going to go through the first time question again. But for those who are getting to know you, what first brought you to Oaksterdam and this movement?
Thank you, Sara. And yes, link back to the previous episode in the notes to learn more about the history. I first came to Oaksterdam looking for education. When I moved to Southern California, it was to work with doctors and medical patients in Orange County, which was not a friendly area for this, especially even up until recently. And so just knowing both the education that was available, any regulations that were available, what the doctors needed to know, and most importantly, what the patients needed to know about how to access their medicine safely and responsibly, and importantly, how to have successful law enforcement encounters. Because especially in Southern California, we were often dealing with law enforcement officers following people home from the dispensary, even from the doctor's offices, and them trying to shut down doctors through task forces, because at the time they definitely saw doctors and those offices as the linchpin to the entire medical cannabis movement, that if they could just stop the doctors, then they could stop the patients, and then they could stop the dispensaries, they could stop medical marijuana. That, of course, was not the case. But that was why I reached out to the founders of Oaksterdam, Jeff Jones and Richard Lee. It was to figure out, what is this anyway, and how do I keep everybody safe, from the folks that walk into the office with genuine medical problems to the doctors that needed to be protected for the reasons that I just stated.
Yeah, it was a wild time. Like, I remember, I was working in a dispensary in 2012, and we would get recommendations in from physicians, and it would be really hard to verify them because they were very nervous about that. And it wasn't until later that I learned more about people like Dr. Todd McArea and the things that he went through. And it's very real. And even today, there are physicians that are very nervous about having that conversation.
Oh, still true story. They're not even allowed. They're prohibited by the, HMO, PPO that they're involved with usually. And, you talk about, the 2012 and Dr. Todd McArea, please look him up. He actually helped write the first medical cannabis guidelines for practitioners, for doctors, back in 2000, I want to say 5 or 6. And those were the recommendations that we wound up, having our doctors practice. And Dr. Todd was part of Old Oaksterdam. These are all the founders that got together to help educate and help others, whether they be medical practitioners, folks in the health industry that just understood, like, my patients are consuming cannabis, whether it's legal or not. And they, viewed it as malpractice to not understand more about the medical applications of cannabis and the contraindications and, what is based on research and science, not just, some of the fear mongering. So it was definitely the early days. This is, talk about dating ourselves. This was 2007. Sara, is when I moved to Southern California, and it's August. So we're at the 18-year mark for me, and these folks were doing it quite a bit longer over time. So that's who I went to for this early education, and it was the end of 2007. And I think people like me asking for this information, that Jeff Jones and the Patient ID Center, originally the Oakland Cannabis Buyers Cooperative, OCBC, had been doing education for patients every week on how to grow your own. But folks really wanted to know how to start their own business and how to do more. And that's where folks were going to Richard saying, show me, show me, show me. And just like I was saying, show me, help me understand how to do this. For me, it was for doctors, not for growing cannabis, but to understand, what this was anyway. And so it was November 10th of 2007 that the first Oaksterdam University classes were held in Oakland. And that since has become an official day recognized here in Oakland, November 10th. Also my middle son's birthday. Fun fact, I happen to have a baby, coincidentally, on Oaksterdam Day. What?
Well, that seems apropos.
Yes, and I didn't even realize it about 2 years. He's turning 12 soon, and it wasn't until we looked it up to celebrate with the city of like, when was the actual first? We always knew it was November 2007, but we couldn't remember the day. And of course, Chris Conrad of Leaf and just the historian among us, Chris Conrad, texted me back a photo of the first class that he taught, the politics and history class, and it was November 10th. Like, oh my goodness. So
that's so funny.
That's coincidence.
Yeah. And Chris and Mickey are the repositories of so much knowledge.
Indeed.
I love talking to them.
Justice policy reform. The things that they have done. They are the shoulders we stand on.
Yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's, I think, one of the things that's really important too for people who are just entering in, really understanding the people who did come before us.
Indeed.
And also, there were a lot of men and women. We tend to talk more about the men in the movement, but there are a lot of women that should not be forgotten as well too, that did great work. And I feel like we're starting to have more conversations about that too.
I'm glad that you called that out, Sarah, because they're definitely, whether or not the women were the outspoken ones or the ones that went out. And even back talking about 2007, the doctor that I used to work with, Dr. Carey, she and I used to have conversations about why there were so many more men that were even willing to come out and call this medical for their cannabis consumption, why more men visited the dispensaries, why it was always so skewed. And, we came to some conclusions that, it just felt like oftentimes it was in so many couple relationships, the woman would try to keep the family safe while the man was the face of whatever was going on. And it wasn't that the woman wasn't, propping up, sharing in the work, finding ways to support the work silently and unseen. And I would say the same is true with early Oaksterdam with people of color. It was also the white men that were more easily able to stand up without getting taken down. Mm-hmm. And when I see all these photos of old Oaksterdam, I am struck by how diverse, from not just color of skin and origin, but, male, female, young, old, just how beautifully diverse, LGBTQ, just a little bit of everything sprinkled into every photo all the time. And it's like, why did it feel like it was so white male centric back then, when like the photos that nobody shares publicly, including me, like they're in a photo album, they're old, physical photographs. Why are those not more seen? And I realized it's because those folks, the moment they came out, they were criminalized.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I can see it as almost allyship through policy making, because if you're going to stick your neck out, it may as well be the person who has the least likely chance of getting the book thrown at them.
Mm-hmm. And then you've got people like my husband who actually stood up and said, "Shh, over here, get behind me, over here, get behind me." Woo. Yeah, I fell in love with him before I figured out who he was and what he did. And now I realize who I married. And yeah, it was often, it was a blessing to be able to learn from so many folks that knew them back in the day that we've lost since then, as well as the folks that are still among us, that it's not too late to gather wisdom from the folks that have been doing this the longest and have seen it and been around the block a time or two. And yes, some are jaded, it's hard not to get jaded in the direction, a lot of what I see today isn't what we fought for. We're not done yet. There are still people behind bars. I just today spoke with Lionel Villaseñor, and he's going through our live program soon, and he started with our self-paced program recently, and he was in prison. I think it was 22 years that he was in prison. I might even be, I didn't Google it right before I got on, but please Google him. And he was helped through Last Prisoner Project, as well as so many more that are still behind bars on this issue. Like, we are just simply not done yet, and we still criminalize so many folks that even as we legalize, we failed to decriminalize in that same policy. And we wind up like, great, now it's legal for 21 and up. It's legal for patients. What about 20-year-olds? What about dumbass 18-year-old? Like, if I love you, young people, but like, if just think back to when you are young, or if you are, like, this is when you're supposed to be able to make those mistakes and not have them haunt the rest of your life. And that is exactly who we have now not only criminalized, as we always have, but really like narrowed who we're criminalizing down to this small group of people, where we're really just going after young people, often Black, brown, and indigenous, poor people. So we're just not done yet with our policy. As we do well, we need to do good in our policy.
Yeah, I completely agree. And on that note, how has Oaksterdam adapted post Prop 64 and through the federal policy shifts? Because it's been a really interesting time. Like, I remember, when we passed 64 in 2016, I was actually at a party in Oakland, and there were other things that occurred that election night too that made me like, hey, maybe we step back, because it seems like on a federal level we're in a lot of trouble, and maybe we can hold off on all this. Like, I was kind of making deals. I was like, how about if we redo the presidency, give back legalization, and then just do a do-over like next year? Can we do that? Of course, totally unrealistic. But 64, in many ways, people were very hopeful. And as we've seen in these years, there have been some good things, but we've also been going through mass extinction events, and there's just been a lot of challenges as we, as a nascent industry, are finding our way through everything. Because I was actually in Barcelona this year, and I was talking to Bo Whitney, and I was asking him, being an economist and giving data to help create sound policy, how helpful that was. And the thing that he said to me was, Sara, policy isn't based on fact. It's very emotional. And I know you have a lot of experience with that.
I have a sign right there that says War Room, that used to hang on the door of the Prop 19 campaign headquarters. And I keep it there to remind me that we are still at war. We are still suffering under the war on drugs. And a lot of the decisions that we make are built on not just a 50 years old propaganda campaign from the Nixon administration that was entirely built on politics and falsification of fact and science, but that we continue to have that through organizations like SAM. It's beyond frustrating and aggravating, and it's critical to realize that. And I figured this out through the Prop 19 campaign that Richard funded back it was the first campaign in over 30 years that asked the question of voters, hey, what if we legalize this? What if we tax, control, and regulate this for adult consumption and stop paying cops to criminalize it, stop paying criminals to make money off of it, but finally actually like allow good, otherwise law-abiding citizens to do business in this so that we can, buy books instead of guns with this money. And so it's really been a push-pull with the fear and the continued profiteering off the illegalization of cannabis. And not just cannabis, but that's my focus. But this war on drugs has been a war on us, a war on our freedom, a war on our choices, with a substance that is and not my quote, this is Francis Young, a DEA administrative law judge, who found cannabis to be the safest therapeutic substance known to man. The safest therapeutic substance known to man, said the DEA administrative law judge. Now, the DEA does not have to follow their own administrative law judge. I'm bringing this up because we have to pay attention to what's happening now, that our administrative law judge just stepped away and retired on this issue and handed it over to the DEA to go make the determinations moving forward with rescheduling, which is why we need to continue the push for descheduling, that we have to continue the push to legalize research, to legalize safe access for our veterans, regardless of what state or territory they happen to live in or have been stationed in most recently, their families are based in, that this is an issue for all of us, regardless of what political divide we happen to find ourselves in. In fact, this is one of the few things that I believe all Americans can in fact agree on. And if we just pass the peace pipe, if we can just share perhaps in a substance that also, it's not a miracle worker, but it does tend to make things better and help people to communicate, that we have found problems on both sides of the aisle, from both local to national politics, international politics. But we've also trained the German parliament, where all 6 different parties and the czar of the health ministry and the person in charge of their cannabis policy were willing to come together on this issue when they also don't agree on anything but this one thing. And they were able to get it better. So it's definitely about telling your story and changing hearts and minds as you talk about why that policy affects the patient that you love, or the person that you care about, or who or what you're advocating for, be it your business or yourself or your mom. You've got to tie that together for policymakers, because if you just come with facts and figures, like I was really good at facts and figures in Prop 19 and spewing them, but it turns out that's not what changes the world. What changes the world is people's stories and believing that they can, and that it's worth it, and that they can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. I just had Congresswoman Dina Titus on the show, and we were talking about the co-chairs of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, and they have 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. And I was very excited to learn more about the 2 Republicans that were the co-chairs of the caucus, because one of them is a veteran. So he understands the value of having availability for vets, and how we need to do a lot of work within the VA to create safer access. And then the other co-chair, it sounds like he actually understands the fact that there is some overtaxation involved. So though we may not all align on all our ethoses, it seems like there are people on both sides that will kind of fill in the gap so that we could have better policy and maybe not be set up to fail if they can make their voices heard to the rest of their colleagues.
Indeed. And I think we can all agree the taxes are too damn high. And that if we overtax our legal businesses, we lose them. And that's really, like, I hear you, SCIU, I hear you, community organizations, like, you're who we want these tax dollars to go to.
Right.
But we've got to make the balance. We've got to find the balance there. And I think, fair taxation of legal businesses is something that we can all agree on. And then, you make really good points around the importance of the bipartisanship in the approach, and that we have to not just have our voices heard on what we want, but also remember to turn around and say, good job, well done, thank you, because our elected officials are also humans, right? And they need to hear when they've done something right, not just when they've done something wrong, as well. And I think the other thing that we can all agree on is safe banking, because I recognize the wanting to get things right along, social equity and just equitable laws and access to safe business practices, regardless of whether or not you've been impacted by criminal justice, if you're formerly incarcerated, just all of these things that lock people out of participating in the legal industry. At the same time, the small businesses that are in disproportionately impacted areas and communities need safe banking too.
Yes.
Like they're underbanked already. Like wealthy white people, talking about wealthy white guys, they already have a bank. Like they're not having an issue finding a bank. It's don't talk about it, don't tell anybody, but they're banked. That's not the problem. The problem is for everybody else, all these small businesses. And so just finding those things that we can agree on and that do help from big to small is most critical, I feel.
Humboldt Seed Company from California's legendary Emerald Triangle is the state's largest licensed cannabis seed provider. Blending traditional breeding with modern innovation, they've created fan favorites like Jelly Donuts, Chicken and Waffles, California Haze, and the cult classic Blueberry Muffin. Visit HumboldtSeedCompany.com for top quality seeds and educational content. And keep an eye out for their upcoming Uruguay documentary. With pheno hunts at leading farms worldwide, Humboldt Seed Company brings unique aromas and flavors straight to you.
Yeah, and throughout all these changes, post Prop 64, how have you had to, as an organization, adapt? Like, what have been some of the things that you've dealt with? What are some things that have been challenging? What are some good things that have come out of it?
Prop 64 was really hard because there were better policies on the table that, unfortunately, even before it got before the voters, the folks with money corrupted the process of policymaking. Mm-hmm. And it was difficult to support. I mean, there's like, I still have the ballot. There's like tear stains on them. It was difficult to vote for. And, since then I feel like just call me Cassandra, because I feel like the Cassandra is just saying like, I told you this was going to happen and we could have avoided a lot of this trouble. However, we really needed, and more so because of who was elected at the same time, we had to have a state policy of legal cannabis. Because of the Cole memo and the different policies with the feds, and this is also important to kind of note for what's happening right now, that the current policy of hands off, of not spending money on going after legal medical marijuana, not legal adult use cannabis, but legal marijuana cannabis operations, is one of the big ones is you have to have a state law legalizing it. And we didn't have that yet. And so it was crucial to have that to avoid being prioritized for prosecution, and that the AG at the time prioritized prosecution, undid a lot of the deprioritization around, things like not just going after cannabis businesses, but property forfeiture. And it became a priority to go after, by any means necessary, to the nth degree, property forfeiture, especially against marijuana businesses. So it was like, oh, you've got, come on, this. So that also rolled in with 2016, and California was protected from the brunt of that, not all of it, but a lot of it. So having the voters vote that in also was a loud, resounding message to the other elected officials in the state. It is time, whether you are, somebody that is hired in the offices of local city and county and state government, or one of the agencies that are tasked, not just the tax agency, because we trained them back in 2016. The Board of Equalization came to Oaksterdam for very specialized training. We trained their trainers. So the second largest tax collection agency in the world is Oaksterdam graduates. But the rest of the agencies, the CDTFA and the governor's office, and establishing that we are going to take those tax dollars and not spend it on law enforcement, but actually spend it on things like research and equity, helping to fund businesses, technical assistance and direct assistance, as well as other programs throughout the state. So, Colorado, I think, really got it right on where the money goes in funding schools, because communities felt it immediately. And I think that with what's happened in California, it's important to remember like how important it still is to show up, but to not be California centric. Like that's true everywhere. No one is done yet. No one's really got it right. And these are all just different experimentation state by state. This is the beauty of the 9th and 10th Amendment, is experimentation. And this is something that is happening. And while I don't see a bright light with the current administration on who's going to take the next step forward, I don't know that matters, because the actions don't ever match the plan anyway. What I do see is this is the same administration that legalized hemp. And what I would like to see is let's regulate cannabis like hemp. And how we've pivoted is to teach all of these different things. We're teaching updates on, I mean, we updated as recently as the big, beautiful bill just passed. We did a whole nother legal update that we've got to understand the, not just federal versus state and local law, but also tribal law, and incorporating how different tribes, because even if it's not necessarily legal in your neck of the woods, it might be legal on tribal land right next to you, or that is exactly who you're competing with, or importantly, who you might be able to do business with. And so just really evolving to meet the moment of what is happening, not just in the legal state by state and federal, but also just what are the best practices that we are finding state by state as these different places and spaces and people and business people and entrepreneurs and ingenues are coming up with like these amazing, like, wow, we had talked about something like that, like, you know, all these years ago, and holy moly, it's true, it's happening. Or things we never would have thought of like, wow, I didn't think they'd do that with this. It's mind blowing to see how many I don't even realize come back and say, hey, Dale, Oaksterdam, class of 2009. I'm like, what?
That's awesome.
Amazing. Yeah,
that's awesome. And as this has evolved, like, what has changed with course offerings and the way you look at things? Because in the beginning, like you were saying, a lot of it was people, you know, coming and asking Richard, you know, how do I grow? How do I start a business? How has legalization changed the evolution of Oaksterdam and your reach and who you're talking to with educational programming?
Yeah, I think legalization has just made it okay. It's made it okay for professionals to ask the questions and for people to want to get into the industry, that we've brought dignity to the industry, that whether it's a, you know, marketing professional, a C-suite person, you know, delivery drivers, security people, they're just like, wow, this is a legitimate industry that needs people like me. Mm-hmm. And just being able to meet folks where they are. One of the important things in the old days, it was, and, you know, Richard formalized the Oaksterdam programs because so many random people were asking him, like, hey, teach me this, teach me that. And he's like, okay, first you have to show up to city council, you have to show up, and then I'll teach you how to do something. And it was like this trade of, if you get active, if you get involved, then we'll teach you what you want to know. But it quickly also became with our first classes that we needed to start with the how to protect you. And not just now, it's how to protect your business. It's less likely that you're going to get pulled over usually by law enforcement, but you probably will have a badge visit you for compliance. And so being able to meet people where they are and expand our programs. Once we went online, and we first went online way back before it was cool in 2017, I first pushed the button to go online with our horticulture program, and it was an MMRSA. It was a California legal class. And back then we had to teach people, like, this is what online learning is. This is what Zoom is. This is what an LMS is. So the pandemic didn't change history. It definitely accelerated it. Now I don't have to explain any of that first. People know what this is. And I'm just like, right, push this button over here. And they're like, great, I'll see you on Tuesday on Zoom. Awesome. Woohoo. So it's definitely made online easier. But more importantly, it's made the ability to take like super specific subject matters and go deep. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying, oh, I've got to attract people from all over the world on this one subject matter and teach, like, yes, deep enough for you to be able to take that back with you and change your neck of the woods and go do business, but also keep it surface level enough that it could help somebody from Kentucky or somebody from Ukraine or somebody from Japan or somebody from Oakland. And so just being able to take that deep dive. And now we've expanded programs into the business of cannabis for entrepreneurs, but also for managers and for workers that are entry level. So for instance, a bud tending program that is also financially accessible, not just for individuals who want Oaksterdam certification to go get a job, but also for workforce development and for employers to be able to afford to train their team. Because as we both know, it's way more expensive to not train your team.
It is.
Right? But, you know, we don't need to teach a bud tender how to start a business, and they don't need to pay $2,000 to figure out how to start a business either. And for somebody who is really trying to start a business, they need to go deep and spend quality time, not just learning what they want to know, but what they need to know and didn't know they needed to ask. And that's what we specialize in, is not just setting you up for success. Oh, hell yes, we do that. But we also prepare you for the worst. All of those things that you didn't know you needed to know, and different ways to navigate it without spending a lot of money. And importantly, because you're going to have to hire consultants, you're going to have to hire other experts, but we help you hone your bullshit detector so that you know who to hire and whether or not they're doing the work that you need them to, because these are tools for you to utilize properly. And just like any tool, like you can get a really good quality hammer and then break your hand with it if you don't use it properly. So just making sure you're using your tools properly is so important. I've learned.
I like that analogy.
The hard way. Oh, so many scars. Oh my God. But before I forget, I also just want to mention too, because you got me excited about our programs, the horticulture programs as well, and the difference between somebody who just wants to learn how to grow for themselves and making sure that home grow is still accessible for those who we really serve, whether it's patients or veterans or just folks that maybe it's not legal yet and you just really need to understand how to take care of you and your loved one and have like home extraction that's not going to blow anybody up. But a very thorough and extensive, home cultivation of like what to do, what not to do. And again, how you can do it for, on the cheap, but do DIY it all the way up through horticulture mastery, which is everything all in, all the way through commercial and compliance and legal, and making sure that from soup to nuts, whether you're a worker, a manager, or going for mastery, and yes, even home grow, you have access to weekly hort labs to come in and ask anything. You have access to videos and how-tos, and you're not just like left on your own to try to like understand something that was probably created by AI and not accurate anyway. Like we have real humans, real instructors, real experts that have been doing this for decades to make sure that what we are teaching you is not just correct and accurate, but timely and updated legally for you to be able to make the best decisions wherever you happen to be. And that the last couple of things I just wanted to say, is teaching them live. Yes, like self-paced or live is now available. So you can come on a schedule and interact with our instructors, or just watch the videos and take the classes and courses, which are like reading and interactive, like on your own time. And the All Access Pass is something that we've really tried to bring in to democratize our training and make it affordable and accessible for people too, because we recognize like it's hard out there.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's really hard when you're navigating all these different educational programs that have come out since legalization. One thing, and I'm not going to mention any names of any other programs because, but one of the things
you don't want to waste anybody's time.
Exactly. But, there with the advent of legalization in the United States and so many states turning on their legal cannabis programs, we've seen institutions starting to offer certificates and degrees and things like that. And when I hear people going to certain classes, because like when I first started teaching, people were like, so where did you go to school? Like, what are your credentials? And I'm like, anybody who's teaching right now has no formal degree because you got to start somewhere. We're all learning and creating these things. So when I ask somebody, when you're taking this class at this university, do you feel like the people who are teaching you, is this more about institutionalization or is this about learning? Are you getting this degree so that you can put this on your resume? Are you learning anything? Is the instructor that's teaching you, do they actually know what they're talking about? Are they given a curriculum to teach and they're like, you know, they're adjacent in some way, shape, or form that to, you know, the educational body there is the way that they're like, oh, you'll do. Okay, you go in there, you know? And I hear so often that it's like, yeah, it's nothing that I didn't know before. It's purely institutionalization. And my instructor, though very nice, has absolutely is teaching this material without any past experience. Like they were a professor in another area or an area that was similar. Like they could be a horticulture professor, but they didn't grow wheat. And so that's the thing that really gets me, because how do you get practical experience and understand the nuance of what we do if the person who's teaching you doesn't have the full view of what's going on?
Well said. And it's even worse than that, because I there's definitely, and well-intentioned, well-meaning, you know, I love teachers.
They're the best. Yeah. And they should be paid more.
Too, right? We are at heart, you know, all in it for the same reason. But it is evident oftentimes that they were handed a curriculum to read from. And what's worse is oftentimes the universities and colleges, for two key reasons that I want to point out. Number one, it's still actually illegal for you to be a nonprofit and teach about a Schedule I drug, especially practical applications. It's why I operate as a nonprofit, not for profit. I'm not allowed to be one. As the school, I started a nonprofit for education to put one step in between. This is complicated because I will lose my nonprofit status as soon as I gain it. They know my name. They rated me. But they're like, you cannot be a nonprofit because you teach about a Schedule I drug. And until it is descheduled or rescheduled, that will continue to be true. And all of these colleges and universities are also taking federal funds. It's the same reason that you can't use your GI Bill. You can't take federal funds to educate about the practical applications of cannabis. So not only do they not have practical experience in the applications of cannabis, they've never worked in dispensaries and never worked in an actual cannabis grow, but they're also not allowed to actually teach about those details, or they are at risk of losing grants and federal funds. And some kind of, you know, blur the line and bring somebody else in. And then oftentimes they just bring in, you know, dude on a whiteboard who doesn't have their information peer reviewed or even legally reviewed before they're giving it to you. But wait, there's more. And I'll stop here. It's that they're also bringing in other classes and courses to create these programs that have not been reviewed specifically for the cannabis industries or the risks and responsibilities thereof. This, going back to point one, is still an illegal substance. And so they're teaching things like transportation and marketing out of their normal business program. They're teaching bookkeeping and P&Ls and all of this different stuff out of their normal programs. They're not talking about 280E rules and how those apply to the cannabis industries. They're not talking about the interplay between hemp and cannabis and where those lines fall. They're not talking about how you market this the way that class just taught you and you just lost your client, their license. People, like they are teaching you how to break the law because of the ignorance around how they built the program. And so that's really like, it's the construction of the interplay of this information that is so critical and crucial, because no one part exists in a vacuum. Everything, this is a bowl of spaghetti. And we have been eating from this bowl for 30 years with the people longer. My husband's 30 years. 40 years with the folks that instruct here and review this curricula before we deliver it to you to make sure that we are getting that delivery right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And therein lies the difference.
Chef's kiss.
Well, getting into the student body, when you look at the demographics and the motivations of your students, what are you seeing?
Oh, my favorite subject, our students, our alum. Oh, it is, wow. I mean, from 18 to I think 96 was the oldest person who actually came to Oaksterdam, although in fairness, my 100-year-old, well, she's 101 now. When she was 100, my grandma did learn a little bit, but we had a live student like walk in, and it is, from every socioeconomic background. It's, I'll have like former law enforcement officers pull me aside and say like, I finally retired, because the ones that are still like, they didn't tell me they were there. It was probably under. But I know they were there over the years. Anyway, I see you, Michigan. But I heard there were actually 4. I knew about 2 of them because we used to play spot the undercover in the classroom game with the.
So they're taking notice, but they're also taking notes. They're like, ooh, fascinating. Never thought about this.
And I'm like, first, thank you for paying tuition. And second, I hope you learn something and bring it back to your brethren. So yes, it was equally like, and so many now just like shake our hand and say, I'm so glad that we can finally have this conversation. And, we have actually trained law enforcement out loud on purpose, because this is now that it is not contraband, it is commodity, and communities have a different expectation around how to approach it. And so, speaking of communities and leaders, whether it's thought leaders or community leaders and folks that are designing policy, we've got folks that are trying to regulate and legislate, and they're staff members just trying to figure out what is this and what matters and what is fluff. We help you get the signal through the noise and create good policy for safe communities, because that's ultimately what this is about, is health equity and safety in our communities. Like, let's do make sure that we have law enforcement that shows up when you call them. We just didn't want to be the crime, right?
Right.
We have academics. I just got off the phone with Highland College, and they have a introduction to cannabis program that we are helping to support there. So we have also students that are trying to get through degree programs, and different folks that are trying to connect the dots academically. And mostly, we have people that are simply trying to get into the industry, start careers, and start businesses. And those that are trying to network and find one another from not just all over the country, but all over the world. Whether it's folks just like really wanting to understand how to become a bud tender, or someone who wants to be their own bud tender. And they're like, I got to help my grandma, and I'm trying to understand like what this is. We have nurses. We are working, we'll be live in Virginia in September we've got the Patients Out of Time conference, which has been continuing education for nurses and healthcare professionals. And so we're teaching like an intro course that leads into an endocannabinology program, as well as intro to horticulture, and a lot of just home growers, as well as people that are really trying to understand how to get hired in a professional cultivation in their neck of the woods.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, the empowerment around that is just so incredibly important, because, a lot of us when we started, it was like, all right, here you go. Sink or swim, kid.
Or who do you know? And that's what Oaksterdam, we're here to help you find your place in space. Mm-hmm. And you don't like have to know somebody, right. And you don't have to like necessarily also like trust everything they say. Like, having friends and family to help guide us is really helpful when you've got it. And also it's helpful to be able to triangulate your position off of like, what Uncle Bill told you about all of this, or what dude might be saying, going back to just helping you understand your risks, your responsibilities, help you set up for success, help you prepare for the worst, whatever that looks like in your life.
Yeah.
And we have people come in with this should on their shoulder of like, well, I should do this, should do that. Wait, what do you love? What problem are you trying to solve? Let us help you fall in love with the problem you're trying to solve, and then your business will be successful and stay cutting edge on whatever it is you're trying to do. But don't pick something you hate. Like, I've had people, I need to go start this. And I'm like, you hate growing, you kill every plant you touch. Okay. and you don't like to be alone, and you only like to be with people, and you're a producer of events. Can we talk about this real quick before you go spend $1 million on a cultivation facility? Because where you really need to be is in the experience space, and you don't necessarily need that expensive license to do it. But you do need to understand the cannabis industry so that you navigate it, as well as the hemp industry, and wherein lies the difference between the two. And again, like, where did the line fall? Where does the line fall of what's legal and what's not? And how can you push the line? How can you be involved in that policy reform?
Are you looking for a lasting, meaningful way to connect with your audience and highlight your brand? Well, listen up, because Planted with Sara Payan is taking on new sponsors. Here's a powerful stat. 20% of listeners are more likely to support brands they hear about on a trusted podcast. And 60% actually look up that product after hearing about it. That's the power of podcasting. Planted with Sara Payan has a unique draw. With remarkable guests, we attract and engage audience that spans all sides of the cannabis spectrum. Picture your message reaching these listeners time and again. Podcast ads are evergreen, meaning your brand stays relevant as new audiences discover and binge past episodes. It's a long-term investment that keeps on giving. If you're looking for a targeted, passionate audience with lasting impact, the right listeners are here waiting to meet your brand. Visit plantedwithsara.com to get a copy of our sponsorship deck today.
Yeah. Well, and touching on that, what have you been experiencing with advocacy partnerships? And also, what are some of the alumni success stories that you've had? Because I know so many people that came from other places to California to attend school, and they brought some of them fell in love with California and stayed, of course, but a lot of people, had their great experiences, and they take them back to their home states or their hometowns because they really had a vision for how they could bring entrepreneurship and prosperity to where they're from.
Yeah, there were a lot of students that tried to move to California and were like, no, you need to go home. We need you to go home and change this in your neck of the woods and normalize this and have the conversations with your church leadership and your friends and your family and the parents and the PTA and your children, that the advocacy is constantly evolving. And, keeping up with different advocacy relationships that we have in partnering as educational partners and helping different members, especially those that are less fortunate to access education. It's really a matter, again, going back to the, when you do well, doing good, and whatever that looks like for you, and going back to what you care about. And this is both an opportunity to connect with your community on behalf of your business and your passion, that whether it's, Habitat for Humanity or, serving meals on Thanksgiving, working at different things that matter most, Boys and Girls Club, that's also what you can give back to as part of your advocacy. Because once those people realize you care, then they start to care about what you do. And that's what really opens up the hearts and minds in our communities, and I dare say will save our country. You asked a second question after advocacy, and I want to ask you to repeat it.
Oh, of course. Some of your alumni success stories.
That was where my head went first. Thank you for reminding me. So, one that really sticks out to me is Sean Richards. And he was the king of weed on Haight Street in San Francisco before I joined the industry, that's for sure, or even the movement. And we get the asterisks on the king of legal weed on Haight Street now, and helping him navigate. And since then, he now gets paid to be on boards of directors. Like, he's not just running his little shop in San Francisco. He is now, just really expanded not just his operations, but his worth in other businesses to other entrepreneurs, and helping them get over and through what they need to overcome. Because all of us, I don't care where you are, you're going to have trials and tribulations. And his experience of overcoming some of the most difficult the part that Oaksterdam played in his story wasn't teaching him how to sell weed. We were here to teach him all the intricacies around how to do it legally and what the expectations were of this new industry. And importantly, give him the confidence that he could run his business instead of letting his business run him. And he said, Dale, the confidence to manage my consultants was priceless. And now he helps others like him and not like him. He gets paid by all kinds of different organizations and corporations to help them do this as well. And so it's folks like Sean that really, I look around, and even the last time I talked to him, he's like, "No, I'm doing great." I'm like, there's hope for some of us that you can do it. And I also want to mention there's a local here out of Oakland. It's called House of LDLR, and Luz and Luna de la Rifa, and they run a women's and sexual health based company, and they focus on things like natural ingredients, because we all know that, especially over the past few years, some of the chemicals that we have been told, sure, put that on or in your body, it's fine. It's not fine. It's not okay. No, don't do it. So the fact that she came out of this industry 30 years ago with strong understanding of what matters, and not just women's health, but sexual health for men and women, for partners, for people, no matter who you are, no matter how you identify, to have the ability to take care of yourself no matter what stage you are in life, and whether it is self-love or fun stuff like with a partner. They've got a gummy line that is this where I get spicy? That
you can get as spicy as you want.
I wish I had it within reach. I could actually show you when I have it on. I'm already, okay, now I'm going to start to blush, but they gifted Jeff and I, there's, like little gummies that would also be really fun for, like bachelorette parties or birthday parties, like boobies and little penises. And she sprinkled them around the last time we were there. And I found myself saying like, "Oh, here's another penis." I'm like, I can't believe that just popped out of my mouth. But she's, and a cock ring that is stiff enough to like hold its, it's not just a delicious edible, but it's also functional. Right. And ensuring that their products are not just, delicious and smell good and are wonderful, and have the effects that you're looking for, and can strike up a conversation that you can have a little bit of fun with. But we are all human beings, right. And being able to normalize the conversation, if you're a woman in menopause, or, dealing with just sexual health with a partner, and having some lube to have some fun and not have it be painful, so it's really amazing to see House of LDLR be able to produce these types of products and have them accessible now in a way, and be able to have the conversations in a way that just weren't previously possible.
Yeah.
And the other one I want to mention real quick is we are working with the City of Oakland as a contractor. It was a competitive process with proposals and all of that, to do an equity awareness campaign for the City of Oakland equity entrepreneurs. And so we are talking about legendary operators, legendary cannabis, legendary products, and finally being able to get the word out for those that have survived some of these extinction events and stayed strong. We are talking about some scrappy, tenacious people that get up and grind every single day. That is what inspires me to get out of bed every morning, is our alum changing the world. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And Sean and I were on the oversight committee in San Francisco together. And it was really cool.
Yes, you even know Sean. Yay.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, not only is he an OG, but he's like making it happen in the business world, and he's influencing policy. He's bringing his voice to the table. And it's so important, because from a policy standpoint, when we see a lot of people who are new to the industry coming in and talking, I mean, all voices, all lenses are important, but that institutional knowledge and the ability to be able to break it down for people to get them to understand is so essential. And so voices like his are just really important in this conversation. And it's just wonderful to see people like that just growing and creating abundance in their lives.
And it's true. And that's really like, I think that the secret of Oaksterdam's, it's not a secret, Oaksterdam's success since we started, because, our mission has always been to change the world. And it sounded insane to say it aloud, but then we did. And it was because of educating people that showed up one at a time, who cared about this, who learned, who were willing to be lifelong learners, get certified, go home and change the world in their neck of the woods. And all of that starts to add up. And it's how 1,000, 100,000 flowers have bloomed around the world. Wherever you happen to be, it's better than it was, whether it's legalization, decriminalization, and different efforts to, even jury immunity. Even if you're in Nebraska and nothing's legal yet, Idaho, I see you, I'm sorry, that you still have jury immunity. You can still show up and vote, no, I am not going to vote guilty on this person because I do not believe marijuana should be a crime. You still have that power. You still have the power in the jury booth and the voting box. Yes. That when you go vote, you can vote out prohibitionists and vote in people that have more sane policies in mind around this issue.
I think that's a really important conversation to have. And it's something that when I was still teaching, it wasn't just about cannabis education. It was about getting active. Like when I first started in this industry, and I would tell people I formerly worked in civil rights, a mutual friend of ours, Jacqueline Patterson, said, "You still do. Do you realize that?"
When did you hear? You're doing it right now. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I was like, you're right. I'm just so in the moment and like immersed in like the people and the education. But, when people are wanting to learn, like actually getting them to understand where we've come from, where we're at, where we're going, what their role is in it. And sometimes I would have people saying, "Hey, I'm not here for that. I'm here just to learn." I'm like, okay, but we're going to touch on it for a second because you got to know.
And if you don't know, then you're definitely missing something that's going to like punch you in the back of the head.
Yeah.
Because there's like so many folks think, it's legal already. No, it's actually not. And if you don't understand where those lines are, and even when it becomes legal, it's not going to be just a switch that flips. There's going to be still a lot that is going to need to be addressed and changed. Most states and commonwealths still have cannabis as a Schedule I drug, even if they've legalized it for adult sales and medical sales. So like there's still a lot left in extricating cannabis from the war on drugs and removing it from the criminal laws, and it's state by state, it's territory by territory, it's locality by locality. If you stop and think about how many thousands of laws each state have that are going to need to be rectified. So Absolutely. It's a lot left to do, but we're doing it. We're doing it.
And that people outside of the state of California have no idea that even though we have legalization here, we still have a wide swath of our state where cannabis is not available.
No, we're still ripping babies from their mothers for weed in their house.
Yeah, and that's the reality. We have a lot of work to do. But, cannabis. Yeah, there I go. Blah, 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 blah. Cannabis education is becoming global. Mm-hmm. So how's Oaksterdam involved in all of this?
Well, we've taught a lot of the folks that brought it global. And that's, the 100,000, over 100,000 graduates from 116 countries. And for many years, you had to schlep to Oakland to learn. And now we come to you wherever you are. And the beauty of online and the ability to really customize the training to be important, whether you have already created some of these laws locally or you've not even started yet and there's still complete prohibition. And that's really what our programs are now designed to do, is wherever you are, we're able to meet you where you are. And in many places we have, state specific training as well, where we really dive in. And if we don't have it yet, we can certainly talk about customizing it. And it's also important for the different groups that come in. A lot of businesses come in needing training for their team, and being able to customize that that training so that we're teaching folks what they need, when they need it, and then cross-training them into different parts, and ensuring that leadership also has an understanding of what the frontline employees know. It's improved in so many places the esprit de corps of the company, because now finally everyone understands each other, including the language, the lingo that everyone is speaking, and why, like, oh, asshole makes me do this every Thursday. And then you take this class and you're like, hey, boss, can I do this on Wednesdays too? Because I've realized that if, like, suddenly you become part of the solution instead of part of the problem, because you're all on the same page of how we're all, the goal is everybody does better, right? And so when the company does better, you get better hours, you get promoted because you're part of that solution, and the company is not paying to replace you and pulling the best person from the floor to go train you and be less productive in the long run. People always talk about, like, oh, it's the cost of hiring. Whoa, way worse, way more. And for you as someone in the industry, also just understanding, like, maybe this is just your way in and figuring out where you want to take it. We've started working with Helga Boucher out with a global bud tender training, and helping, especially in Spain, with a lot of the dispensaries that are, still navigating the illegality as much as the illegality of all of this.
Oh yeah.
It's tricky, it's complicated. And, Oaksterdam, we've been global since the start because it was citizens of so many countries that have recognized the failures and want to know what they need to know and how to figure it out. And we were for so long, the only place that you could come, I still dare say the best place to come for that education. And it's in addition to the other education that people have. It's, we're not done yet with our programs. And they're constantly evolving. We are regularly updating and improving, and we're learning in a reciprocal fashion from our students as well, of how did this help you? What did you learn from it? What can you bring back to the current programs and students, and utilizing that feedback and just constantly doing better. It's really been that organic interaction with our students over the years, who are now often in business around the world in one way, shape, or form, and hiring our students today when they get out.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you were talking about all of this, I was thinking about conversations I've had with people before about the evolution of education, and as we evolve, how we have been constantly refining the lexicon and how incredibly important that is. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts around that?
Oh, we have a whole channel internally as a company called Nomenclature. We love words. Words are very important, and so important that we actually recently put out, we're in our second edition of the style guide that is all about words and how to use them properly in this industry, because for so long it was all about slang and to not use the right word. And what is the right word anyway? What does that word really mean? And so the style guide, for whether you're an educator or a legislator, in a legislator, or just an educator in your company, putting the right terminology with what it is you're talking about improves everything for everyone. And so really getting that right. And we also happen to publish, I didn't have the style guide right behind me conveniently, but I do have the bud tenders guide. And that's also an opportunity to learn, what is this? And so it's not just like classes and courses, but also something that you can turn around, take notes, and show your grandma, your Aunt Betty, and figure out, what is this terminology? And especially when you start to get into different extractions and manufacturing, what to call it so that the people around you understand it. And now that we've done the research, around the cannabis genome, and comparing what we've learned about equatorial varietals and the difference between where it originated or where it's been cultivated for centuries versus sativa and indica, which is the common terminology, but not accurate to reality.
Right.
So being able to bridge that gap.
Yeah, because it's, we still use that a lot. And I know, like, there are times where it'll come up in conversation and there's always some smarty pants that looks at me and goes, Sarah, that's incorrect. And I'm like, okay, so yes, you are right. It is incorrect. It is the terminology that we have right now to describe the nuance of the spectrum of feel. So tell me, what would you tell an 85-year-old woman on the other side of the bar at a dispensary to get her to understand how she's going to feel with this then? And then I get silence because I'm like, you're not going to get into chemotypes with her, honey. What are you going to say?
Right. And it's important to be able to bridge those gaps to find the best product for the person and what they're looking for, like to get to the goal. And often, communication is about just getting to the goal so everyone understands.
Right.
And that the individual that you just helped has a good experience and wants to come back and do it again. Yeah. Or has a good experience and helps heal themselves in some way, shape, or form. And I don't mean the putting promises on medical, but just go get some sleep, woman. Like
stress management.
That sleep is really the best thing that you can provide. So
right.
Yeah, just how to have those conversations and hold those conversations and to just also understand, like, there's so many testimonials that we've all heard all our lives, especially if we've been in this or, been consumers ourselves for any period of time, and connecting the dots between what you heard or what you know or what you experienced versus the science behind it. Like, it's mind-blowing right. to connect some of these dots, Sarah. So if you're a geek like me, that's also like some of the fun of stuff like this. Yes.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, it's all about being able to bridge the gap, because I think one of the biggest things that's been really intimidating for people who may not be familiar with cannabis, or it's been a really long time, is that though, cannabis culture, stoner culture, I'll say stoner culture is a very rich part of our overall culture and our history.
This episode is brought to you by Fat Nugs Magazine, a global perspective of cannabis and stoner culture as a bridge to the rest of the world. Right now, you can join Fat Nugs Magazine, Beard Bros Farms, Freedom Grow, and Jailed for Weed in the upcoming Prisoners Edition and help spotlight current and past cannabis prisoners and their stories, because no one should be in jail for a plant. Find Fat Nugs Magazine's beautiful print copies at your local dispensary, fatnugsmag.com, and on socials. Cannabis culture welcomes us all.
It can be a little intimidating, and there's a little gatekeeping involved in that. And that's when, we look at retailers and they're like, why are we not making the sales that we should be? Why are we not reaching these different audiences who could benefit? And it's like, well, have you met them where they are?
Yeah.
And chances are they have not. They have an idea of what they think that should be, but are they really listening?
Well said. And the methods of ingestion, and so much has changed. And I'm not talking about, it's so much stronger. We could spend
that's a whole episode on its own, isn't it?
Please invite me for that episode. Because
you're invited. There's an open invite.
I have feelings and opinions and facts. But also because the reality is, and I've triangulated the truth of this too, is what they used to test was, like the ditchweed, and then compare it to, hydroponic medical, or just quality grown cannabis. We used to have Thai stick back then, and it also tested pretty high. So, and I can promise you that some of the tests that are out there right now are not accurate. They are high themselves. They're smoking something, because
I know, I've seen some of those tests and I'm like, what in what?
That's actually like science. That's like the math doesn't math. With percentage. Okay. Anyway, back to you, Bob. Yes.
Yes. That's it.
She grits her teeth.
I know.
Okay.
It's painful. It's painful. But we're getting there. We're getting
We
there.
are. Thank goodness we are testing. We're getting there. It's all true. All true.
Well, and getting there. What's on the horizon for the next 5 years for Oaksterdam?
Oh, you're going 5-year plan?
Yeah, well, as long as that's not
How
too
about
much
the next
pressure.
5 months?
I know. Well, and the funny thing is as I ask that question, I think about the joke that we all talk about, like cannabis years or like dog years. So 5 years is a long time in our space.
You just made me really old. Yes, that is the truth. And I can promise you, in the next 5 years, that we will need to reinvent ourselves at least 4 times. Because we've had to reinvent ourselves over and over and over again. And I mean, completely like shred and rewrite all of our programs from scratch, basically. Like, we're taking the lessons learned of what we were teaching and how we were teaching it, and then doing it better and completely different, and in ways that just keep really honing that. So what I can say over the next 5 years is we'll keeping our fingers on the pulse of what's happening around the industry and the movement and the policy and the procedures and the compliance and worldwide, just how to do better, how to inspire folks that they can be part of the solution, and that in fact they must, that whether you're in it or just a fan, that just even having those conversations with people around you helps to destigmatize this, helps them realize that no one's judging you. We actually appreciate that you're going in that direction. That, reminding ourselves that it really is just about humanity, and that advocacy course. We even, you might say we wrote the book on advocacy, and we've rewritten that course as recently as this past year, because how we advocate has changed. It's critical and crucial to constantly reinvent yourself. And I guess we're kind of in love with the problems that are the cannabis industry. And that's why we can stay that tip of the spear. And what I can say in the next 5 months is launching a multitude of live programs so that people can come visit and interact and ask those questions and network with folks that are just like them, like-minded, and also that have been doing it for a while and know what not to do, or what might happen if you choose to do it that way, and give you some examples or people to talk to or things to look up, and really help connect the dots in a way that, as amazing as our self-paced classes and programs are, that live experience is truly special. And so I'm really excited for the second half of this year.
That's exciting. I think after the 5 year, you could do like a thesis on nimbleness.
Yes, and the high heels backwards on a like moving escalator, with a blindfold on. And that's, it's what I say to my team. It's what I say to staff. It's what I say to friends. It's what I say to family. It's so rewarding, but never a dull moment. Never a dull moment. You will not be bored.
No. For those who need constant challenge and stimulation, this is the show. This is your show to be in. Like, get into weed. Cannabis is always exciting. Sometimes, like I've been saying,
in a terrible, horrible, no good way, but yes.
I know.
We laugh at the darkness.
Yeah, we have dark, dry senses of humor, and I've gotten to saying, may you have an uneventful day in the best of ways.
I will take those blessings. Yeah, because I've used a couple dull moments.
You kind of embrace them after you've been doing this for a while.
You definitely do. And you definitely have to love it. If you don't love this, it is not for you. Keep it as a hobby. And we'll teach you how to, like I said, we love our DIYers, and we are here for you. You don't have to be in business to love and learn and do this in your backyard or in your closet, wherever you happen to be local. That is why I just love the way we've been able to evolve, Sarah, is to finally not just meet people where they are with education and emotionally and spiritually, of like, yes, you're home, but like literally meet you where you are. Where is your cell phone? Like, where you can take classes just wherever, from your car. I've had people take a full semester off their cell phone out of their car, because that's where they needed to be to get it done.
Yeah.
And it's, just whether it's, ADA accessibility or translations into another language, the team, I'm so grateful for my team at Oaksterdam and how hard from faculty and instructors and student services and our specialists and director of academics and business and our production team have just taken it to a whole nother level in 2025, that even if you came last year, come back, come see the new Oaksterdam. We got new stuff for you. It is good shit straight out of the oven. Mwah, chef's kiss. Come back.
I love that. So
yes.
Reflecting on all the years.
Yes.
What's been the most surprising thing that you've learned during your tenure at Oaksterdam as leader?
I would say the tenacity and grit, the stick-to-itiveness, and just the sheer will of the folks that have taken this education and gone out and done something with it. They come back and share. And please, if you're in the sound of my voice, come back and share because we want to hear how Oaksterdam has played a part in your life. We shredded the records after the raid. But when you come back and you tell us, this is what I went and did with it. This is whose lives I changed. This is who I helped get out of prison. This is the business that I started. These are how many people that I employ. This is my grandma and how we helped get her through cancer treatment, or my wife or my child who I was home for the birth of. There's just, it's so many humans and their stories, and it just constantly surprises me what people have gone and done with what they've learned. And it's such a pleasant surprise. It is, y'all are my hit of hope. It is amazing. It is truly the sum of all parts, and the entourage effect that what we do with this is greater than any one of us, and what so many individuals have done with this are so inspiring to all of us.
Yeah.
It's really, yeah.
All right. So I promised you.
You'd wait till the end to make me cry?
I'd wait till the end to make you cry. But, Richard Lee passed recently. And it's a deep loss for the cannabis community. What do you want the world to remember about Richard, not only as a founder, but as a human and an activist?
Oh, there's so much. And I'm sure no matter the response, it's not enough, because I don't think people realize wherever you are, you wouldn't be here without Richard Lee. He put his money where his mouth was in a way that nobody else would or did. A lot of people talked about legalization. A lot of people talked about changing the law and the rules and the way of things. He was the only person that actually did and took so much grief and hell and hate. And this is back when death threats weren't so ubiquitous, so it was still pretty rare. What he did was hated on in some ways, and not one of us would be where we are without him. That he was willing to not just risk everything and lose everything. He was forcibly retired by the federal government, and the fact that he didn't go to prison for the rest of his life is a bit of a miracle. And it was because he stopped, and because he would have become a martyr, and also because he was actually paying his taxes, that no charges were ever filed. It was the demand to show up and turn out as part of your responsibility of doing business in this industry, that you had to show up and insist on better policy if you were going to make money. And this was never about legalizing weed. This was never about money. This was about legalizing people, about freedom, about priorities in the communities. And Richard shared the blueprint with everyone and said, go do it for yourself. You don't need to come work for me. You don't need to do it in my name. Go do it for yourself. Go take care of your own family. There's nothing wrong with making money. It's the American dream. Go live your own American dream. He was selfless. He was irreverent. He was crunchy sometimes, but I think you had to be a little crunchy to have the gall, the intestinal fortitude to do what he did.
Right.
And we can talk about like why and how he got here, but the reality is he saw us in a war, that we were in a battle, and that we were in this battle together, and that we were freedom fighters, and that we had to support the fallen and their families, that we had to keep fighting, and that sometimes the general fell, and whoever they passed the torch to, you know, flames spread. There's multiple in the field now, and I'm blessed to carry the Oaksterdam torch that was first lit by Jeff Jones, that was carried by Richard Lee for so long when Jeff was stopped by the Fed. And now, you know, it's back in the family. And Richard, he taught us all how to fight fair, and how to fight from within, that you had to play by the rules that exist in order to truly make change to those rules, and how we are all regulated, controlled by those laws, but also set free when we realize. And I think this is what like surprised me most. Like Richard, you know, people talk about like Steve Jobs, how he created this field around him where like you believed the impossible was possible. Richard made me believe I could change the world, and he did with everyone else around him. He made you believe you could do it and that it was worth it. And it was just, he was right. Look what we've done.
Yeah.
Look how far we've come.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the fact that he empowered others to do that work is huge, because sometimes some of the brilliant minds that are passionate, it turns into more of a cult of personality and about them than anything else.
Indeed. And that's maybe where, you know, you like, he wasn't just a cannabis policy pioneer and a freedom fighter. He's truly the father of legal cannabis. Like wherever you are, if you enjoy cannabis on any level of legality, but he would say, don't talk about me, talk about what you got to do next.
Yeah.
And you must be present to win. You've got to show up.
Yeah.
So get out there and get to it. Like he would just say, shh, stop talking about me and go get it done.
Well, and with all the lessons that he brought, what's the one that you find that you turn to the most?
Ooh, just don't give up. Like you can do it. He was a warrior, but his kindness and belief, it, you know, he was just the first to be human in front of you, and reminding me that I can be human too. And that's hard sometimes. Like you've got to be tenacious. You've got to have that spit and vinegar and be the cheerleader, and just constantly drive people around you to do better. And he was so selfless and generous about that it, you know, I've lived these last 20 years almost between what I jokingly refer to as a rock and a hard place between Jeff and Richard. And I'm grateful that I still have my husband, my rock. And which one was the rock or the hard place over the years, I'll let you. It depended.
I was going to say, did it kind of switch back and forth depending?
So, you know, I feel like, you know, I've lost the ability to like reach out and say, you know, what would you do? But I think there's always like, I know what Richard would do. And so like, that's strong. That's strong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, for those of you listening out there, if you've not heard Richard's name, you need to look him up. You need to see everything that he's done. He's such an important part, and to have him gone is a huge loss.
It is indeed. And fortunately, there's, if those of you that ever remember videos, he's the dude in the wheelchair. We used to joke it was the guy in a wheelchair and a redhead to change the there's a documentary that hopefully will be available soon called American Pot Story, Oaksterdam, that really beautifully captures his life. And I hope folks will come to Oaksterdam.com. We have a place for folks to not just learn more about Richard, but share with us like how, now that you know a little more about Oaksterdam, you might have never heard of us, and that's okay. Now you know. So go tell us how we've affected, how Oaksterdam's affected, how Richard Lee personally affected your life story, because it's the story of all of us. And we're really trying to gather the photos, the videos, go record a video, go write it down, but come to Oaksterdam.com and share with us your story, because we are planning on celebrating Richard's life and legacy. And we're continuing to have a homecoming of folks that came through Oaksterdam over the years, even before we were a formalized school. I'm hearing from folks that, came to Oaksterdam long before that, and experienced a change in how they led the rest of their life. And so I'd really love to hear from you, and, whether it's on social media, just make sure you're tagging us, and we will follow you back and boost your story and your history, as well as follow your future, because we're all in this together, and it's an opportunity. And this is what Richard really would have wanted, is to take this opportunity to reconnect and remember who we are and what we have left to do together, because that's how we're going to finally get over this hump and end prohibition around this issue for once and for all.
Yeah. Oh, and then there's a hashtag too.
Yes, hashtag thanks Richard Lee. We're trying to keep it simple, and hopefully you'll follow us at Oaksterdam University as well.
Oh, and what else can the cannabis community do to help support Oaksterdam's work and vision?
Well, first and foremost, we are happy to work for it, and coming back for classes and courses, and to get recertified. To add your certification to your LinkedIn is huge. So many people are Oaksterdam certified. Shout it from the rooftop so everybody else knows too. That would be really helpful. And importantly, we have the Oaksterdam Nonprofit for Education. I mentioned that earlier. We call it the ONE, O-N-E, Oaksterdam Nonprofit for Education. And this is an opportunity to provide scholarships for folks that need this education, and also to help pay for some of these activities that we're doing to honor life and legacy as well moving forward. So really the best thing you can do is come back, come home, come to Oaksterdam and reconnect with us. That is what is most helpful in this moment. We want to hear from you.
Yeah. Go to events, come to the new classes, share your stories. These are all really important.
Call your congressperson.
Yes, get involved. Because if you don't like how things are going, you have more power than you've ever given yourself credit for. Get active. It's not just voting. It's letting the people know whose votes they count on your votes for their jobs. Let them know how you feel, because the more they see us, the more they understand that their constituents, not that there's anything wrong with hanging out in your basement and eating Cheetos, but we're not always just doing that. We're getting busy. We're doing stuff. We're making shit happen.
and show up. Yes, that is so true. And just, keeping up on what's happening, join the alerts, so that when there is an action in your state house, wherever you happen to be, or, popping off like these phone calls. I remember my heart's thumping in my chest. I'm going to call my congresswoman. Like, I remember that fear. And you call their office and you talk to somebody who's super friendly and nice. And it takes like less than a minute, and you can find scripts on all kinds of like NCIA website or ASA website. There's so many now amazing different organizations that follow your special interest, whatever that happens to be in your neck of the woods, that will help you contact. And just that one act of just radical civil action, showing up when you get called for jury duty. You know, people are still getting called around marijuana cases, and you would not even believe how important it is to still show up for jury duty. Just little things like that can make such a difference. Go have a conversation over tea with Aunt Betty and tell her what you're doing, because it's time. We are there yet, and it's time to get to the next level. I am so grateful for your listeners, because I know that the folks that are involved in the Planted podcast are tip of the spear in thought leadership. And I'm so grateful for you for being such a leader in this space and place, Sara. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Dale. I always look forward to our conversations. We could always do a couple more hours, because it's always a really good download. And, you know, for those of you out there listening, also check out, you know, the education issue of Fat Nugs, because this interview is going to be featured in there along with a lot of other great interviews. Education is essential. Education is empowerment.
And it's cool. Like, you can do it.
You can do it. And when you
Geeks are cool.
Yeah. And when you get educated and you get activated, it goes beyond cannabis. It's our world. We are responsible for how things turn out. We have a voice. Let's create some good change. Let's be good to each other.
Indeed.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And for people who want, I know you mentioned some handles, but for people who want to check out classes, follow you on social media, how do they do that?
Yes, thank you. I'm at Dale Sky Jones, and at Oaksterdam University on Instagram, who just shut us off for 2 days. But we're back up now. I know.
Yay!
So we're just educating people. LinkedIn as well. And of course, hashtag thanks Richard Lee. Please visit Oaksterdam.com, and that's how you can really plug in with everything that we're doing around Richard and how to share your story, RSVP for different events, and just get reconnected, whether it's alum or as a student, future, past, all of it. We're here for it. And we are we really want to hear what you've done with it. That is, I think, what's most inspiring, and the hit of hope for the next person is, oh my gosh, you're just like me. And yes, you have the power to change your world.
And you're part of a very important legacy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And everyone, remember, if you like listening, please give us a review, share it with a friend. Let us know what your favorite episodes are. And if you'd like to stay in touch over social media, we are Planted with Sara Payan on Facebook and Planted with Sara on Instagram and Twitter. You can also go to our website, www.plantedwithsara.com, or listen to us on our parent network, Radio Misfits Network, where there are other great podcasts, like one of my favorites, the Winemakers Podcast. So check it out. You can listen to Planted wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, whether that's Pandora, Spotify, Amazon, Google, Apple, Stitcher. Tune in. We are there. So join us. And until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, it's a wild world out there. Be good to one another. Until next time, take care.